learn to code. That is something that you are not allowed to write on Twitter when referencing journalists who lose their jobs. It is a bit of snark, and I think very appropriate snark, that's often directed at journalists who lose their jobs in this rapidly changing and in some ways shrinking, in some ways growing a realm of media. Because oftentimes when there are people that lose their jobs in particularly a rural town where a factory, a major corporation is moved or shuts down, they say, well, people just need to learn how to code, man. Just, move to the San Francisco Bay Area or New York area, learn how to code. Lots of jobs there. Who needs your community? Who needs any sense of, the neighborhood, the town, the people that you grew up with? You should, or where you've been living as an adult for years and years. You should just move wherever the work is and learn to code so you can get a job. As if, first of all, I mean, not even get too deep into the learn to code thing, but coding is a skill. Some people are very good at it. Some people are just okay at it. There are different levels of coding. It's not like you are a coder. Only people who don't know anything about this say this. Oh, I know how to code. Well, Google will pay you $300,000 a year now. They will if you're really, really good at it. If you just learned and you're, somebody who's making a mid-career switch, probably not that good at it, probably still kind of new. Anyway, it's an absurd, dismissive shorthand you often hear from journalists, but when journalists have it thrown back in their faces, they tend not to like that. They have a problem with it. It upsets them because they really do seem to believe. There is a widespread belief among lib journos that they should be able to sit at home, write for a cat blog like BuzzFeed, and post snark and crap and just repackage other people's repackaged stuff on the internet and never have to answer for anything and, get paid and get to feel like they're doing really important work or doing cool work or whatever it may be. But you see, then all of a sudden, sometimes you have liberals who have to deal with the reality of what they advocate for others, right? So learn to code when it's thrown back in the faces of journalists is considered mean and hurtful and unfair, even though journalists often, especially lib journos, that was the shorthand for get a real job, hillbilly American who lost his job at the factory, learn to code. That was what they would say. Well, it turns out that there are a lot of people that have been listening too much to AOC, who is an economic ignoramus. But they've been listening to AOC, and so they think that, for example, Uber and Lyft are really bad and exploitative. I keep seeing all these stories also about how exploitative Amazon is. But they think that Uber and Lyft are really... Oh, and speaking of AOC, do you see that? This is a diversion for a second, but there were going to be tens of thousands of jobs in Long Island City for Amazon, and then Amazon's going to open up a 1,200 person facility somewhere in the New York City area. And she's like, see, Amazon came anyway. Well, 1,200 or so is not 20,000, but thanks for playing. Hashtag math, hashtag Democrats don't like it. The gig economy, though, is something that allows a lot of people to make money on the side, to get work done that they can fit into their schedule. And I would say, I'm hoping this becomes more the standard. I feel like people should be able to be productive, create their own work schedules, be productive in the best way for them, and market their skills and grow their skills, but not, this. Now I'm getting a little philosophical, but it's just true. Cubicle life is not something that we should accept as the future for all humanity, for all eternity. Cubicle life is a very new, in the history of the human species, a new phenomenon. And yes, you could say, oh, but we get to sit and air conditioning and it's, safe and temperature controlled and you're near the coffee machine, Black Rifle coffee, hopefully. And, you have all this going on. But guess what? You also end up spending many, many, many hours of your life doing nothing. And you do nothing because there's a corporate culture. If you have to be there, you have to be in that chair. But in chair. This is what they call it in the CIA. NYPD even more so. You got nothing to do? Can't go home an hour early. But in chair. You're paid to be here. Well, cubicle world is hopefully going to give way more and more to just productive world. People work, and this is already happening. I mean, this people working more from home, people being able to work virtually, people being able to do things that do not require them to go through a grueling commute and be in a place they don't want to be for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day. And the gig economy is moving us further in that direction. Now, of course, a gig economy also has a flattening effect on a leveling effect, I should say, on the playing field, right? Because, okay, well, you can drive an Uber, but somebody else can drive an Uber too. So how much is your Uber driving really worth? You don't have what you have had in a lot of cities with taxi monopolies where they say, well, there's only going to be a certain number of taxis, and we're going to decide what the taxis get paid per mile or what the fees essentially will be, and that'll be government regulation. So central planners don't like the gig economy. This is because the gig economy is, by its very nature, decentralized. So they get angry about Uber, even though a lot of them use it. I mean, I think Uber's a game changer. I like going to California, L.A. specifically. I like L.A. now because I just Uber everywhere. I don't want to be worried about parking. I don't want to be dealing with cars and driving. I'm a New York City guy. I'm not a car guy. Although some people, like my brothers, love cars. I don't know. I don't. Producer Mark, you get excited about automobiles? Are you somebody that wants to go to the automobile show?
Not even close. I like to turn it on and get from point A to point B. That's all I care about.
I mean, I'll get excited about a car when it's like the Batmobile and has like twin machine guns that come out of it.
Exactly. Something like that is cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I can't get excited about cars. I mean, they're fine. I view it as a conveyance. So I'm perfectly happy to hop into an Uber, pass out in the back seat, listen to some Buck Sexton show. I hear his show is fantastic, by the way. I'm perfectly happy to do all of that. And now I see that there's this assault on Uber from the left, even though Uber's a Silicon Valley company because, the gig economy, they don't like it. Why are they upset? Well, California, in its infinite lack of wisdom, has decided to change state law. So now if you work, basically you can't have people who are working only a certain number of hours. You have to work set hours. And once you work that number of hours, you have to get full benefits. Essentially, the gig economy now is no longer really possible the way it used to be. So the Vox story back in September of 2019 was gig workers win in California is a victory for workers everywhere. Millions of people have been working without basic labor protections. That's how they frame it. That's how they frame the story. This is Vox, super left-wing website, in case you don't know. It's like if Pajama Boy from the Obamacare era started his own website, it would be Vox.com. If wokeness had a digital manifestation, it would be Vox.com. And it pretends to be very highbrow and intellectual. By the way, it raised a ton of money. Can we get some like rich billionaires to actually fund some conservative media projects, please? What do we got to do here? Can you guys talk to somebody out there? You get the guy Pierre Omidyar writing checks for all these horrible media companies all over the place. I think he's the PayPal co-founder. You get people raise all this money for Vox. Oh my gosh, the cat blog BuzzFeed raised tons of money and then just bought all this traffic and pretended like it was really good content. It was total trash. Anyway, so have your conservative billionaire friends have a luncheon with me. I'll tell them where they should put their money. Stop sending checks to boring think tanks that don't do anything. The opera, fine. Send checks to the opera if you want. Okay, but Vox writes, gig workers win in California is a victory for workers everywhere. That's in September. And then a couple hours ago, Vox Media to cut hundreds of freelance jobs ahead of changes in California gig economy laws. Vox freelancers losing their jobs. Why? Because now California put mandates, government intrusion into the marketplace, in place, saying that if you work above a certain amount of hours, you have to get all these benefits. Well, that makes those employees much, much more expensive. So what happens here? Hundreds of people who are able to make some money writing for Vox. Now, keep in mind, I think Vox is a trash heap, but, it's America. I'm a capitalist. People want to write for it. They should make some money. That's fine. It's legal. They're now told, sorry, you can't be a freelance writer for us anymore. and they're going to consolidate into like 15 or 20 full-time positions. Oh, wait a second. You mean that when the government puts these mandates in place, there are consequences from that? This, by the way, is very similar to what the argument about minimum wage is. People just don't see it as clearly. What does minimum wage do? Sure, some people will make more money, but also there will be greater costs passed on to the consumer. There will be a lot of people who have fewer hours, and there'll be some people who lose their jobs entirely because you are just redistributing where that capital goes. The market sets the price. And with this labor pool in California, the market was setting the price. California, I think it's under law SB 5, comes along and says, no, you've got to have these new protections in place. And once you have them in place, it's going to be much more expensive. And once the expenses go up, guess what? The businesses have to make the decisions they make. But it's just classic. I mean, here's Vox, very left-wing site. Hundreds of people are going to lose an income source for something that Vox was cheering as a big victory for workers' rights in September. And they don't see the cause and effect. They can't really figure this one out. It's pretty stunning, isn't it? One would think that they'd be a little bit more capable of discerning what goes on here and discerning what the real problems are. But liberals have a problem with the gig economy. They don't like anything that they do not get to determine by government fiat. They don't get to write the rules, all of them. They don't get to determine what the wages will be. I mean, there's the upside and the downside in so many ways of not just the gig economy, but what the internet has done for work in general. Yes, it decentralizes a lot, but also because of the dominance of certain companies on the web, notably Google, among others, there is a centralizing effect that we all should be very aware of and that we should be concerned with. But the problem with libs here is they never learn their lesson. They never learn their lesson. They were cheering for this, and now a lot of them, I'm wondering if the person who actually wrote that article about how it's a win for workers' rights in California, I wonder if that person is one of the ones who's getting fired. And I wonder if, she now would change. I bet she'd say, no, it's sad for me, but California bill makes app companies treat workers as employees. That's what the whole point was here. So you're not allowed to be a contract employee anymore. They don't treat contract workers. They have to treat contract workers as employees because they say the nature of the work is too insecure. The nature of the work is you can make money in the market doing things that are not hard for you to do and that you can fit into your own schedule. If you're going to tell companies that they have to pay a certain wage and they have to adhere to your schedule and they have to give you health benefits, those companies will make decisions based upon that. And those decisions will result in people being fired. This is how it works. This is how a business works. This is how economics works. And yet liberals, I don't know, they will just find a way to ignore the lesson here. Always. There's always an excuse. This time the central planning wasn't tried correctly.
We had a very big day in the stock market today, as you know. That will be 133 days where we set a new record, and that's fantastic. Our jobs numbers have come in fantastically well, really well, and we're with some of our great governors and other leaders of areas of our country that are doing incredible things. And we're talking about a lot of deregulation. We're talking about various tax cuts and various tax incentives so they continue onward with what they're doing. But this is a meeting that was set up, and it was set up a while ago, and I think they're very happy about the fact that we have cut regulations like nobody in the history of our country. We have, in less than 3 years, we've cut more regulations than any president for their full term or terms.
Okay, here we have it. President of the United States straight up saying, hey, we're going to cut regulation. We want more prosperity, more financial growth for people, wages going up. We should be encouraging that. Because really, one thing that people forget is that the world is we are actually getting richer all the time. Humanity is wealth is increasing. efficiency, the distribution of stuff all over the world, the comforts that we have, the security that we have. I mean, all of these things. If you look at it overall, now that doesn't mean that there's not poverty and bad things, of course. But if you look at humanity, the world is getting wealthier. We are getting wealthier. We don't have to accept a massive move in the other direction. We don't have to have Mao's great leap forward where millions of people are starving, for example. That was entirely man-made. That was a government-made disaster. It wasn't an economic disaster. It was the government. Don't get me started on the Soviet Union and all the people and now Venezuela and Cuba and North Korea. These are man-made economic disasters. These are not functions of the economy working as it should, where people are making individual decisions and contracts are honored, and there can be dare I say, I know I sound like a politician from decades of yore, but shared prosperity, right? There can be a sense of everyone is getting, things. This is also why, as much as it is annoying that, millennials in particular, we're getting the short end of the stick compared to boomers. Boomers were able to acquire wealth in ways that we're not able to, and part of it is healthcare costs, education costs. These things have been spiking up. Inflation is taxation without representation. Milton Friedman, you always got to remember that one. So things have been getting more and more expensive, even though we're always told that that's just the way it is. But the truth is that we are getting wealthier. So President Trump, we are getting wealthier, and we can continue to get wealthier as a country and as individuals, really across the board. Or we can put Elizabeth Warren in charge. Play 13.
So the financial transactions tax is basically just a tax on every time stock trades on Wall Street. That's the basic idea. It's a very small tax, and depending on how much trading goes on, if you're doing the second-by-second trading, it actually generates a fair amount of money. If that second-by-second trading goes away, it generates less money, but that's probably a good thing in our economy. So I've supported a financial transactions tax.
Just take more money from you for the government. That's the plan. By the way, that financial transactions tax, that means those of you that have 401ks, those of you that have stock, those of you that are employees of companies, I mean, the money is coming out, the government is taking it, and will do other things with it. It'll put it to less productive use. That's what happens. That Elizabeth Warren thinks that she should be in a position to remake much of the financial industry should be terrifying to you, should be a stunning admission. And yet, here we are. Elizabeth Warren, number 3 in a lot of the polls. Number 1, I think, in a couple of states right now. Someone who has not really any understanding of how business really works, but certainly has a good understanding of how to tell envious people that class warfare is the answer to all of their concerns. I saw a poll out that says that 53% of Americans think that the FBI broke the law, which that's a little bit heartening. That kind of makes me happy that people are catching on to this, figuring out that the FBI did, in fact, break the law, because that's what that guy who falsified evidence, there's no way of saying it other than that's a criminal violation. You cannot do that. You cannot break the law in that way. And I also want to move, just for if I can, to the Ghostbusters, because I watched this last night, the movies that made us. It's the production value of the show on Netflix is not that good. It's pretty good. But Ghostbusters is one of my all-time favorite movies, a movie that I've enjoyed tremendously, seen countless times with my siblings, and just generally find to be it's just a great watch, man. I mean, producer Mark, you would agree with me that Ghostbusters is a great movie, right? I mean, it's a classic.
Yeah, I don't have the level of obsession that you do. But
right? Yeah,
it's
that's
a good
fine.
movie.
That's fine. I'm not saying you have to be obsessed like I am, but I'm saying it's even you, even curmudgeonly Mark over here agrees.
I
it's a
like
good movie.
things.
Yeah, he likes some things.
Yeah.
The Rangers. Was it? No, not the Islanders. The Rangers.
No, it's
right?
the Rangers.
Because you're
Rangers,
from the
Mets.
island.
No, I'm from Queens. Let's get that right.
Queens is part of the island.
No, it's not.
All right, well, whatever. He says so.
I'm a city guy.
Look on a map. You see the big island.
Don't you start with me, Buck.
It's totally true. So anyway, we have Ghostbusters, the movie, and they do the whole backstory. The most interesting stuff from it is I didn't realize that Eddie Murphy was initially supposed to be in the Bill Murray role. And Eddie Murphy, really the problem was just that he was going to be too expensive for the budget that they had. And that the character of Winston Zedmore, I think was his name, who was played by Ernie Hudson, got really chopped down a lot over the course of the movie, that they added Harold Ramis as a writer. And, Dan Aykroyd gets a lot of credit, who plays a role in the movie. Dan Aykroyd gets a lot of credit for being the originator of the script. Apparently the first script he wrote, though, was pretty bad and had some basic stuff about ghosts and the Ghostbusters, but it was going to be set in the future. It was not going to be anything really like what it ended up being, because the great part about the movie Ghostbusters is that it is, in fact, a movie where the heroes are capitalism and conservatism. It's about starting a small business in the face of the odds, and the bad guys, the ghosts, but the bad guys really the EPA and government regulation of free enterprise. So in that sense, there's a lot of truth in the movie, a lot of good stuff in it. And I was surprised that I didn't even realize that Harold Ramis was the director for the movie Groundhog Day, which I think is a really fun movie. I mean, it's not a timeless classic like Ghostbusters is. It's a fun movie though, and that Ramis and Bill Murray had some kind of falling out while making that movie. That was a surprise to me. Bill Murray seems like somewhat of an enigma. People say this of him. He seems like a strange enough fellow. So I think I'm going to wait till Christmas Day to watch the Die Hard version with my brothers, because we've all seen Die Hard together so many times, and as we know, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. But I'm going to watch that one. But I said it was pretty good. If you really like these movies, they even have Dirty Dancing, which I will admit, even though nobody puts Buck in a corner, I've never seen Dirty Dancing. I've never seen the movie. And I've had girlfriends.
I haven't either. And it is Mrs. Producer Mark's favorite movie.
Is it really?
It is.
All time?
Yeah.
See, the people love that movie.
They do.
Yeah.
I'll
Patrick
probably
Swayze,
watch it
man.
at some point.
I mean, Patrick Swayze, yeah, I might watch it. I'll find a lady who's willing to, sit through it for the 1 millionth time to watch with me. Patrick Swayze, man, he was great as Bodie in Point Break, so I'll give him credit for that. Although people love Roadhouse, Roadhouse is a ridiculous movie. I'm the cooler man. I'm just here to make sure that everyone's cool. It's like the most glorified bouncer tale I've ever seen in my life. It's pretty amazing. So, I mean, it's certainly not along the lines of some of my all-time favorites and classics. I hope they do a behind-the-scenes, this Netflix thing on Predator. That would be one that I would really want to see. Although I think there's a behind-the-scenes on Predator on YouTube. All right, I'm rambling about action movies. Let's do roll call. Let's hear from the people instead of just hearing Buck. Producer Mark, can you please make the roll call happen for us?
It's time for roll call.
Roll call time, everybody. Everybody's working for the roll call. Yeah. Producer Mark liked that one. He wants us to do a whole album of Christmas songs, but I'm like, Mark, we have freedom to spread. I don't have time for this nonsense.
I mean, you can do that as a podcast special when we're gone. That's fine.
Oh yeah, podcast special. There we go. All right, let's see what we got here. Podcast specials, please. William writes, "Hey Buck, think about remedies for underrepresentation in the federal government of the GOP. How about this? Simply apply the SCOTUS standard in Grutter v. Bollinger that some universities use to new hires for permanent U.S. federal service prospects. This would ensure underrepresented minority groups, the GOP in this case, have access. The president could issue a new executive order using the Grutter v. Bollinger standard and requiring a target of no less than 33% of new hires by GOP. This is on the edge and unconventional, sure to send the deep state liberals into orbit. William, unfortunately, political representation does not counted under Grutter v. Bollinger. They don't care. So let's see. But thank you, though, for your outside-the-box thinking. It is, in fact, appreciated. Andrew writes, Buck, notice the new profile portrait on your podcast. Looking sharp. It seems lighter than usual. Is grumpy producer Mark still on vacation? I kid. You guys like to poke Mark. He's not Oscar the
See,
Grouch,
you
all right?
guys make me grumpy at
Yeah,
this
they're
point.
making him grumpy. Final thing, why do some reviewers seem to send you run-on sentences, messages you can't understand? Shields high, Andrew. Andrew, I don't know. Shorter for roll call. I mean, if I'm really going to tell you guys this, for roll call, send, 4 to, or, 2, no, 1 to 10 to 10 sentences. Like, that's optimum length. When people send me 1,400 words, I can't read that on air. It takes too long, and it's not fair to everybody else in the queue. So, 1 to 10 sentences is optimal for roll call. If you want to go a little, if you want to get into like 2-paragraph territory, I can handle that. If it's 3 paragraphs, I'll read it. We'll read it here, especially if you're making fun of producer Mark. But I can't read it all. I can't read it all on air. So let's see what we got here next. Wayne. Greetings to all in the Freedom Hut. Don't eat otters. They are unclean. I've actually never heard of anyone eating an otter. I didn't know that was a thing that anybody could do. Have you ever
Sounds
heard
gross.
of,
I think
otter kebabs?
Otters are lovely.
Yeah, otters seem cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially sea otters, they're adorable.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's see here. Chuck. Buck. You really do condense this crazy impeachment circus down to the basics. Thanks. I've heard the Demis, it's like a play on dummies, I see, are still in the red from the last elections. In short, they do not have the bucks to do much of anything against Trump. Worse for them, the money they can get comes from deeply troubled socialist techno-billionaires. That cash comes with poisonous left-wing strings driving them and the U.S. off a cliff. So it is clear they're using our tax dollars to publicly fund their presidential election. The Mueller and impeachment probes are simply oppo research and advertising to defeat President Trump, paid by the tax dollars of hardworking people. Chuck from Grand Rapids. Chuck, thank you. I didn't really follow that one that closely, but Andrew writes, Buck, with all the analysis you've given on the gross conduct of the FBI, it's worth bringing up the Ted Stevens trial again. Well, I did that today, in fact, before I read this. I haven't heard you reference it recently and apologize if I missed something. Nope. It's okay, man. It's good. I appreciate it. Political agenda and backdrop. Ted Stevens' vote was arguably the one that put the ACA into law. A federal prosecutor and an FBI agent both manipulated and deliberately withheld evidence that cleared him. The general tone and use of phrases like nobody's above the law and other finger-wagging and cover fire by the media and liberals. There's a great book that Senator Stevens' attorney wrote about the trial called Not Guilty, The Unlawful Prosecution of Ted Stevens. It's worth a read for a detailed exploration of the conduct of the FBI and federal prosecutors. Chilling stuff. Unfortunately, it's the truth of the world we live in. Thanks for everything you do, Andy. Well, Andy, thanks for everything you do, man. Thank you so much for the very kind note. I do appreciate it a lot. Rita. This is all coming in, by the way, to TeamBuck at iHeartMedia.com. Do not forget, subscribe to the podcast of The Buck Sexton Show. It goes up every day at 3 Eastern. Rita writes, it was a serious laugh-out-loud moment, as you pointed out. Women don't usually sell their babies after 8 weeks, 3 months, or whenever. The part that tickled me the most was that she doesn't think women and others who give birth are treated with respect. I'm still puzzling over what others give birth besides women. She is hysterical, always entertaining, but scary in that she is such an attractive nuisance and dangerous. Like an unattended ladder into a pit of fire. Lots of punctuation, I am sorry. Keep on keeping on. Your show is always entertaining, informative, and attractive. Shields high. By the way, are there attachments for shields available for my Rollator? LOL. What's a Rollator? Rollator.
I feel like I've heard of it.
Is that a thing?
Sounds maybe a KitchenAid.
I don't know what a Rollator is, but that'd be kind of... We'll check that one out. Hey, Buck. This is from Gina. Your piece on the power structure of public schools, teachers, unions, etc., and Congresswoman Wilson's attack on Betsy DeVos gets 5 stars from my lib sister, who has been teaching in the public school system for 25 years. She says there's almost no way to terminate teachers for poor performance or bad behavior, and most just strive to make it to earn pension with or without higher degrees, and then continue to work while double dipping for benefits. I doubt she's able to be termed, but just the fact that she agrees with you on this one subject is positive. Continue to be the best conservative talk show host ever. Shields high. Love you, Gina. Gina, thank you so much. And yes, I've done a lot of reading and research and firsthand discussion with people about the public school issue when I talk about it. And I definitely I know the drill. I know what's going on. I know how the libs are playing the game there. And yeah, to have a teacher who's even a liberal agree with me, look, the system we have right now is not good. People need to understand the system we have right now is problematic. Mike writes, Buck, it's a breath of fresh air listening to someone who grew up in my era. Your Tekken 2 reference put a big smile on my face. I owned with Yoshimitsu and Jack. Who did you use? Also, Street Fighter I owned with Blanca and Ryu. By the way, GoldenEye was amazing as well. However, these days, Fortnite is my gaming drug of choice. Lastly, Brandon is awesome and amazing. Go Team Brandon. Shields high. Hey, we love producer Mark here. Stop saying mean things about producer Mark.
I mean, technically, he didn't say a mean thing about me, but saying your team Brandon, nothing against Brandon. But.
No, it's all right. You know what I'm saying. We need some Team Mark to weigh in. All right, I want a little Team Mark up in here. Yeah. Give me some Team Mark. Let's see what we got next. But it's a little bit like Yelp reviews. People only say like they write
only
Yelp.
The mean ones write in.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That's why I always, when you can never trust a Yelp review is when someone complains about the wait staff or the hostess or host being like rude.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't care if this person didn't like you. I just want to know what the food tastes like.
Exactly.
And if the place too loud.
Like I'm the type of person where it has to be terrible service for me to even write a review.
Yeah.
So
I've only written reviews really for places that I thought were absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
So I fall into that category too. Although apparently there can be some consequences against you if you write a bad review. Places can actually try to sue you, I think, now. If they claim that it's defamatory. Let's see. We have in Facebook now. We'll go to the Facebook inbox. Jesse. Buck, from now on, I'm not just ordering a Supreme pizza. I'm ordering a Supremacy pizza. Well, just be careful because you will trigger some libs with that Supremacy pizza.
And what will be on that pizza? That's what I'm most curious about.
That's an interesting call.
Yeah.
I think we could all, yep.
So you go to a restaurant, you order something like, if it's called a Supreme Pizza, you say Supremacy. What are you getting?
That's a good point. Well, isn't Supreme Pizza like everything?
I think so.
It's like
all
everything
the meats,
pizza, right?
Something like that, yeah.
That can be a little too much, I think, sometimes. All the meats start to crowd each other out after a while. Jared, Buck, I've been watching what is happening in Virginia concerning gun laws. I think that is where the modern-day Fort Sumter moment gets touched off. If the governor calls up the National Guard to remove sheriffs from the office, won't enforce those gun control laws, you can bet that men and women from around the nation will rally to the aid of the citizens of Virginia. All right, man, I think that's not going to happen, but I appreciate your concern over gun laws in Virginia. But, look, people need to understand that we are dealing in very combustible political times these days. And if there's a real lack of good faith, which I think there is from liberals around constitutionally protected rights, things can happen. Things can spiral out of control. It's something we always have to be on guard against. Chris writes, Bug, love the show. I grew up in Europe and I'm fluent in German. I know what the climate Greta meant when she said put their backs to a wall. It really means put them on the defensive and force their hand. I find it delicious that the left now has to play defense for being taken out of context. They always play the gotcha word games. Now they get a taste of their own medicine. Yeah, I didn't mention this on the show, but Greta Thunberg got in trouble for saying that we need to put politicians' backs against the wall because some people viewed that as, line them up against the wall. You start to go into a very, very dark and bad direction there. So, yeah, I do not have much more to add on that other than I think that it did seem clear to me that Greta Thunberg did not mean, just because the left always acts in bad faith doesn't mean that I will. I don't think that she meant anything violent by that. It's just a 16-year-old girl. And I think the Swedish translation of back against the wall is somewhat, it sounds better in the original Swedish. The back against the wall. I speak Swedish, apparently. That's right. Stockholm is not lovely this time of year, I can tell you that. It is cold. That is our show for today, which has been fantastic. I hope you agree. I'm sure you do. And if you don't, just write in and tell producer Mark how much you love that he's back. And iTunes, subscribe, please. We also have Pluto Channel 248, the first. Download the Pluto TV app. Watch us there, please. And we will be talking to you tomorrow. Shields high.